Hermes Press fans. Dan Herman, publisher of Hermes Press here with our new Phantom Sundays Volume 7. Look at the cover. Isn't that neat? And this is a Cy Berry cover. This is the first Cy Berry art to grace the cover of one of our Sundays books. Before I begin talking about this book, which is a really great addition to our line of Sunday reprints of the Phantom, I want to just make sure that everybody's keeping safe and everybody's keeping well from COVID-19, which is a real serious problem. It's shut down the comic book industry temporarily, but we've been operating even during the pandemic, turning out Phantom books, Dark Shadows books, our book on Steve Ditko, a number of different titles. They've been going to the printer in China. The printer in China is open. We've been printing our paperback books. For those of you that like the Phantom Avon, 13, 14, and 15 are done and printed, and we're waiting for them to come here from Montreal from the printer. So we've been doing a lot of work even though things have been closed down. Because Diamond Comic and Book Distributors have closed their warehouse, we have inventory here in our warehouse at Hermes Press, and you can get it through our website, but you can't buy it through bookstores. You can't get it on Amazon.com yet, but that's going to change very quickly. So if you've ordered books through your comic book store or your bookstore, you should be able to get them within 30 days or so. With this book here, which is the new Phantom Sundays, and before I get going, I want you to take a look at this cover. And Sal Voluto, a shout out to Sal Voluto, who gave us some suggestions on one of the arms of the bad guy at the top. We liked the suggestion and we used it, so shout out to him. And if you notice in the acknowledgments, we acknowledge him for helping us. Now, since this is the first Sundays book that has Cy Berry's artwork, we've changed the end papers or end leaves to reflect Cy Berry art. Previously, we had Wilson McCoy art, and before that, we had art from the originator of the Phantom art. And as we move along, with different artists, and actually so far it's been Wilson McCoy, it's been Ray Moore, Wilson McCoy, and Cy Berry. And in this book, you're going to get a little art from Bill Lignante and one Sunday from the great Carmine Infantino. Here's what the new end leaves look like, and I think they look really nice, and I think they just really stand out. And they scream, we've got a new style here, and we've got a new man taking over the Phantom. Not in any way to detract from Wilson McCoy, who did the strip so long. Now this book has 8 different storylines in it, and they are the River Gang, the Honeymooners, the Goggle-Eyed Pirates, and that's one of the reprints. That's one of the Avon pocketbooks. So you can read the book, and then you can read the Sunday continuity. The Sunday continuity came first. Fluffy, the Limper, Queen Samaris, the 12th rather. And then we begin with Chapter 7 with the Cy Berry continuities, the first being the Treasure of the Skull Cave. And the end leaves come from that continuity. We took 2 panels, or I took 2 panels and blew them up, and then flooded them out over the page. And then the last story, Sunday story, which again is by Cy Berry, is the Astronaut and Pirate. We have a note here on the table of contents page which explains who did what and when. And Carmine Infantino did the Sunday on September 24th, 1961. And then Bill Lignante took over. And as all Phantom fans know, Bill Lignante was very influential in doing the comic books for Western Publishing Gold Key. And he did many, many stories in the 17 volumes of the Gold Key Phantom. He then went on to do stories when the title transitioned to King Features, King Comics Phantom. And then he actually did some stories in the Charlton version. The Charlton version saw a whole number of different artists, but that's not important for this book. So we have an introduction with a nice piece of original art, and we explain the passing the torch. In fact, the essay starts out passing the torch. And then we have our Sundays. And these Sundays came in a lot of different formats. They were created in a three-panel uh, horizontal format. That's the way the original art was drawn. But newspapers cut them up, and they turned them into a third page. And then they did this really weird thing where they had a vertical strip where they cut the panels and made them even and ran them in rows down, and that's a real mess. And we're not reproducing any of those, but we had to use different versions in order to get the art for the book. And we also had black and white proofs. So we were able to match certain things and put them together so the book makes sense. But the reproduction is really great when you look at the original strips. And you can see we have a third page. We have the way it was drawn on this page, and then we have a third page on the other page. That's just something that happens. We get as many strips as we can get, and we'd like to have them all be completely consistent, but that's not going to happen. So what we do is we get the best material and we restore it, and then we publish it in these books, and then you read it, and hopefully you'll like it. Now, one of the ways you can always spot Bill Ignati's work is when you look at the Phantom, unlike other artists, the Phantom has ears when he wears his Phantom mask, his domino mask. Well, it's not his domino mask, but he wears his cowl. And when you look at his cowl, you can see his ears. So what does that tell you? It tells you that Bill Ignati did the work. When you go to the comic books, here's an example. Look at this panel right here. You can see his ears. See? And other artists didn't pick up on that, but Bill Ignati did. And Bill Ignati did part of one continuity, and then he did the Queen Samaras, the 12th continuity, which is also in one of the Gold Key comic books. And then we get to the Cy Berry Phantom. And what's incredible about the Cy Berry Phantom is it just looks so incredibly sharp. Here's the Cy Berry Phantom. And Cy Berry worked as one of the top inkers in the comic book business. His brother Dan Berry was doing the Flash Gordon strip, and he was actually working on the Flash Gordon strip too as a ghost. And if you read the two interviews in Phantom Dailies 17 and 18, and incidentally, we've had volume 18 in the warehouse for probably a month and a half because Diamond's been closed. And we have the books physically here. And we've been selling it through the website. So some people who ordered it through Hermes Press have it already. And people who've ordered it through different sources aren't going to get it for another month or so because of the COVID-19 problems. But again, here's another example of Cy Berry. Now, Cy Berry was, as I said without being repetitive, one of the top inkers in the business. He inked Alex Toth, who was one of the top comic book artists in the world. And very few people could ink Cy Berry, or rather Alex Toth, successfully. And one of the few ones that could do it was Cy Berry, because Cy Berry understood his style and understood that you use black and white, positive and negative, to balance things off. So his inking is very spot on when it comes to emphasizing volume and shadows and blacks and whites. And then when it's colored, it actually isn't as effective as it is when it's in black and white. And Cy Berry didn't have anything to do with the way these were colored. They were colored by the crew at King Feature Syndicate. Here's more of these. But he brought, what Cy Berry brought to this strip was the most competent comic book, I want to say, sensibility to a comic strip, because he was in the ranks of the best comic artists in the Silver Age. His talent was on par with many of the greats. And so you had a first-rate comic book artist drawing the Phantom and imbuing him with a look and a feel and detail. And I'm not talking about little itty-bitty details, but a scope of the way the strip looked that had never really been done before. And while Ray Moore was very, very good, Sideberry was different in a way that made this strip contemporary. The other thing is that Sideberry pushed Lee Falk to make this strip more contemporary and realize the fact that it had to be in the 60s and 70s and had to deal with the social changes and the changes in the world that weren't really reflected in the strip prior to Size taking it over. So the strip really came to a high point to its maturity with these strips. So here's the back of the book. So with that, you have the first issue. Now this is in transit from China. This is an advanced copy. And with the COVID-19 problems that we're having and the delays in getting this book to the warehouse, Diamond's book and comic book warehouse, I suspect that you should have this book by the end of June, unless you order it from us, in which case you'll get it as soon as it comes in. But I think this book does Sideberry's work justice, and I think it shows you the evolution of the strip. The stories are a lot of fun. They're very well written. It's a perfect book. And the cover, I think, is really outstanding. So that's it. Any questions? Email me, email Sabrina, email Candace, anybody at Hermes Press, email info@hermespress.com. Go to our website and check it out. Any questions? I'm always available. That's it for now. Bye-bye.